I probably defined it a lot of different ways along the way. So, because I came from a background where up to the age of 30, I was an enormously destructive force in the lives of lots of people around me, um, through my drug addiction and alcoholism and, the ways that I, responded to the world I inhabited. So, I think, I kind of started off thinking, my idea of success in 1985 was like if I could get like one day when I didn't want to die, I would have called that success. And later, I got more ambitious. Well, that was a big one, and I do remember the first day that I didn't want to die, and it was a good day. It was a really good day. Um, Later, I started, going to school, and I started to, and I liked it, and I was good at it, and I'd not really been in school since I was 16. I was 30 years old, and so, it was kind of defined by academic success, and I worked really, really, really hard at it, and I liked it, and, getting, great grades and understanding stuff, and, being the first hand to go up in the room. Um, and some of that I think was very healthy, and some of it was probably, me trying to, look like somebody who deserved to be here, being afraid that I didn't really belong. Um, then I thought maybe I'd be like a super duper rock star researcher or something like that when I got in graduate school, and I tried to get a job at one of the real rock star kind of research centers, but I was so afraid I didn't deserve to be there that I made myself unhireable at the first like 5 places I interviewed. I just did miserably, and but finally, I got laid low. Like I figured out what was going wrong in these interviews, and I was kind of trying to puff myself up to look big enough for the job, and what that looked like was arrogant and self-serving and self-centered, and late in the day I got a job interview at the University of Mississippi, which is kind of a medium-sized, it's a nice solid state university, but it's not like Brown or Duke or something like that. And I went there, and in my sort of first interview, this person said, "Well, you should be really easy to place." And I said, "Yeah, except for this little personality disorder problem." And they were like, "What are you talking about?" And I told them, like, of all the people I knew, who I went to school with, like, I wanted to be a college professor. I mean, I really wanted to be a college professor. And I was afraid that I wouldn't get to do that, and I tried to look like somebody who could, and it backfired and just has made me look horrible. But I just want a chance to be a college professor. And, I told that story to a couple of different people. And I went home, and the next day they called me up and they said, "Would you like to come home and be a college professor?" So, and it's been, like what success means to me has been shaped, over my years there. I would say, like what I'm most proud of. It's a kind of a social network that I've been able to cultivate that is, connected to education, and a lot of it is students at the university, and I've made a place at the university for students to like kind of grow and develop and to learn to carry others on the days they need to be carried, and the harder thing for them to learn to be carried on the days that they need to be carried. So to carry and be carried. You know, I couldn't have predefined success in that way because I would have had no idea that such a thing was possible. So it's not like in 85 I would like to, because it'd be like imagining a different planet or something. My wildest drunken dreams have consistently paled next to reality. I'm drawn to a lot of the, conventional markers of success. Like I'm embarrassingly susceptible to flattery. I'm almost 60 years old, and you cannot know how weak I am for flattery. So, I like it when people admire me and stuff like that. And I try to not have that run how I live. I don't mind money, which is another one of those kind of conventional ones, and I try not to, let that be what organizes my activity. I definitely don't think it has to do with stuff. We really live in a kind of modest place. Like if somebody gave me a couple $1,000,000, I wouldn't move out of my house. I like my back garden that my wife has worked so lovingly to make, and I'm pretty content with the life I have. Definitely, I don't buy like the kind of acquisitionist, success. It doesn't mean much to me. It's kind of funny. How I handle fear and self-doubt is I've kind of made a career of some people learn to play, everybody really learns to play out of their kind of strong game, like they have their strong days and they have their days when they're like on, and those days they get to play. But most people never learn to, play out of their weaknesses. And so what it means is on their weekdays, they either have to stay home or lie. They just have to go out in the world and pretend like somebody who's not weak. Or just, stay away from people so that they don't detect it. And somehow or other, I had the good fortune to be connected with some people that were very open about their own weaknesses, and I recognized that I wasn't alone, and it meant really a lot to me. And so I kind of started giving that away, how scared I was, that I, wasn't fit for the world, and that I couldn't be much use in the world. I walked around the first 30 years of my life thinking the world would be better off if I was, gone. And so when I heard these people who were, who had things going on in their lives, speaking about their own weakness, their own sadness, their own fears, I knew that I was not alone. And at first, these people were nice to me, and at first, I, kind of thought, there were there was going to be some payment expected in some way, which I couldn't figure out because I didn't really have anything to pay. But I don't know why people would be so generous. Now I know what they wanted. Is that they wanted me to give away the same thing that they gave me, and but it happened pretty naturally. They offered me their weakness, and I knew that I wasn't alone, and I started offering that to other people, and I could see people responding to it. People get so tired having to be strong and smart all that all the time. It's the hardest thing for graduate students. I tell them when they come there. Independence in my work lab group is like punished, you know. If you want to work independently, go work with someone else. My lab is about interdependence, you know, and learning to carry and be carried. Like it's everybody's job in the lab, you know, to learn to carry and be carried. And it's much harder for these super bright, because to get into a PhD program in clinical psychology, you got to be really, really smart, really, really hardworking. So they're really good at carrying. They're really bad, very often, really bad at being carried. And that's a hard thing for them to learn to like put themselves in the hands of others. You have to give your weakness away. You have to bring your weakness to the table, and in order for that to happen. And this comes back to me again and again and again. In 2006, when I was the president of ACBS, I was the first president once we were incorporated. And Steve Hayes and Steve's my mentor, and you know, I love Steve without reservation. And I know who he is. Like, this isn't like some kind of idealized Steve. Like, I've spent a lot of time with Steve. And so anyway, he and I had talks, and there was like going to be my talk and then his talk. And then they got switched, and I thought, you know, woohoo, I get an extra day, you know, to work on my talk. And Steve gives this talk, and it is so brilliant. It brings me to tears, you know, like it has such heart and smart poured in equal measure that I'm like brought to tears, you know. And at first I'm thinking, wow, you know, I've been working with this guy for like 20 years, and he can like bring me to tears with a talk, you know, a science talk. And then the very next thing I thought was, how am I going to follow that? You know, and I sat in my hotel room at in London, you know, like I'm up till like 3 or 4 in the morning, you know, writing and rewriting and throwing out slides, and like, oh my God, you know, how can I, you know, like, and I had this little book, and it's one that I love really a lot. It's called The Spirituality of Imperfection, which is just Bernie Kurtz wrote this little book. It's so nice. And there's a story in it that comes from the Judaic tradition, and it's to this rabbi who I can't think of his name, but the gist of it was, when you meet God, he will not ask why you were not Steve Hayes. He will not ask why you were not Moses. He will ask, you know, why you were not you. And so I'm sitting in this kind of hotel room in the middle of the night, fussing over this presidential address, and like, you know, I had to recognize that the reason I was the president of ACBS was not because, you know, they had confused me with Steve Hayes, you know, and they weren't asking me to be that, and that wasn't my place there. And so the next, you know, I started my talk by saying that, you know, the first presidential address was called The Heart of ACBS, and you know, what I did in that talk was to acknowledge, you know, like that what I had done at ACBS is to bring them my weakness, and they let me stay. And that, you know, has, I mean, I can see the effect of that. You know, I can see the effect on people. Not everyone. Some people are just like, holy crap, you know, and they run the other direction. But that's fine. I don't have to be for everyone. But boy, I've seen enough people who, man, I can see the weariness in their eyes, and they see a place where they can come to rest, where they don't have to be strong and smart. Good. I cry easily, but that's certainly, you know, one that, you know, because, I mean, you know, one thing is just all the damage, you know, that I did to myself, but, you know, I hurt a lot of people. You know, I mean, I'm past reprimands. I mean, I wouldn't go back and shake my finger at myself or anything like that. I mean, you know, I let my mother go months without knowing whether I was dead or alive. Not a phone call, not a way to contact me. I bought into a story that I was so toxic and dangerous that anybody who was close to me would be better off if they were like away from me. And I held on to that story and allowed my oldest daughter Chelsea to go without father for, basically for like the first 10 years of her life. If there was a way that I could reach back and tell my younger self, like, you don't have to live like that. You don't have to do it. See, I thought I had to. I mean, like birdie's got to fly, fishy's got to swim, Kelly's a dope fiend. It's sad, it's tragic, but it is what it is. And if I could, whisper back in time and say, you don't have to do this. You can stop. You can stop. There's a way. There's a way back. Because I don't think I was ever like, I behaved mean, but it wasn't like in my bones. I didn't want to hurt anybody. Boy, I sure did. I hope. Some like, there's no going back. I don't know where they are. There's no going back and fixing it. It's my hope that, people like my oldest daughter, like that, that how I live now, sort of says, I don't want to say it, nothing goes back and sort of changes what happened, but I hope that what I'm doing in my life now serves as a kind of I don't know how to describe it, because I don't mean like to compensate, because to compensate sort of means that you sort of put things whole or something like that. And I don't, there's no going back and like, thank God my oldest daughter had a wonderful and loving stepfather, who loved her when I was, actively loved her when I was incapable of doing that. But I hope that it means something to like my mom and to my dad and, to my daughter, that, I'm trying to have my life be, provide some service in the world, to make some difference. Maybe somebody else stops a little sooner, and sees like, you don't have to do that. You can stop. I hope that means something to them. She was born in 1975. Her name is Chelsea May. We used to say Chelsea May and Chelsea May not. And she was like incredibly, she was like wonderful, Some of the ways she was when she was little, she's like, like that now too, you leave her alone in the bedroom, she changed clothes like 4 or 5 times when she was like 2 years old. And I really loved, it wasn't like I ever lacked of love for her. I just was so out of control that, they had to, her mom had to get away from me and had to take her away from me because, I was shooting dope and, getting crazy drunk and interacting with, dangerous people. And so, when Elizabeth took Chelsea, my first wife, Elizabeth took Chelsea and left with her, she had her fill of the kind of craziness around me, and she really gave me every chance. I mean, I remember the very last day that we lived together, she said, you got to do something. And, I just sort of shrugged. So that was like 1978. And so for the next 7 years, I was, either completely absent, or like I would show up. You just didn't know if I was going to show up or not. So like, I'd be like supposedly going there to like get Chelsea to do something, and maybe I'd get there, and maybe I wouldn't get there, or maybe I'd get there and I'd be so drunk that, she couldn't be left with me responsibly. And I don't know for a fact, but I suspect that, Liz probably like quit telling her when I was coming because she's the one who had to explain, where's Daddy, and like, did Daddy go away because I was bad? And so, when I got sober, it was in '85, and I mean, of like everything, it was like, life kind of reached up and grabbed firmly a hold of my ears, pulled my head out of my ass, and, it's kind of like, wow, you can see things if you don't have your head in your ass, and after I, kind of wiped the feces out of my eyes, one of the things I could see is that I had been willing to let my daughter go without a father because I couldn't stand how I felt when I looked at her. Because when I looked at her, I saw this epic failure. And I couldn't watch kids on television. If I was at the park and I saw a kid, I would like leave because, when I saw kids, it was this huge failure. And, I remember talking to somebody back, when I saw this, and, my father was gone when I was little. And they asked me this question, like, what did you want from him? And it was a good question because, I didn't really want anything except for him to, like, notice. So I started, like reaching out to her, and real imperfectly, like I'd reach out some and then I'd, fall back and reach out and fall back. But, I started paying my child support like every single month, and I never missed a child support payment after I got sober. And I just started doing what I said I was going to do. So if I was going to go there, I said I was going to go there, I was there. And I started being like reliable and thinking like, well, what would a father look like? And so, I did that, and it was hard to get her to come and visit me. I think it was probably scary to come and visit me, because she was little when she left, and, her mom is like a rock, and her stepdad is like this great guy, and so she had like this known security, and then there was like me, and it scared her, like I remember once when she was maybe 11 or 12, and she was like visiting and hearing her on the phone with her mom, like, I want to go home, and there were a lot of times of like, like reaching out to her and like calling in, oh gee, I'd really like to see you, and would you like to come and see me? And there was kind of those things, not coming together. When she was, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I saw her, but, I would like go there and I'd see her for like a little while. It was awkward and hard. But, I kept trying to reach out because I thought, that's what a dad would do, is not like, depending on her response, but just because like a dad would keep the door open, because maybe someday she'd want to walk through it. And when she was about 16 years old, I guess, we were living down in Reno, Nevada. I was going to graduate school, and I called her up and said, gee, it'd be really great to see you, I'll buy you an airplane ticket. And she said, how about Thanksgiving? And something started, I think she got old enough and kind of grown up enough that she wanted to sort of know who I was, and something got started there. And she has the most generous spirit. She's, when she got married, it was a marriage that ended unhappily. She's like very happily married now to a really wonderful, wonderful guy. But when she got married, she asked me to come and walk down the aisle with her stepdad, me and her stepdad. And, like I knew at the time, like he deserved to walk down that aisle because he was there always. And I knew that I didn't deserve to, but Chelsea, see, deserving and love don't have anything to do with her, with each other for her. And this makes me like a very fortunate guy. She wasn't asking whether I deserved it or not. I was there because she said I belonged there. And, I got another chance. And, I've had a lot of other chances. I've been very fortunate that way. So I just realized like all the questions that like you asked me, are all these kind of really sad topics, and I wouldn't want people thinking I was like walking around like sad all the time or anything like that. I love my life. Deeply. I have a wonderful, extraordinary life. I spent, today on a panel discussion with, somebody who's like, at the leading edge of, contemporary evolutionary theory, and I have wonderful students and a wife and 3 children who love me. And people like should know that I'm not just like kind of morose all the time, like I'm a complete goofball. So just so that you get an example, the other day I sent my daughter Sarah a text message, and I said to her, I said, sometimes I like to crouch down and clasp my arms together and tuck my head. And she sent me a message back saying, Dad, I don't know what to do with this information. And I texted her back, because that's how I roll. I'm sorry. These things just come out of my mouth, Do you know why people don't eat clowns? Because they taste funny. Funny. So here, this duck walks into a bar. He says, hey, you got a grape? The bartender says, no, it's a bar. Duck leaves. Next day, Duck walks into the bar. Hey, you got a grape? Bartender says, no, we don't have any grapes. It's a bar. Serve liquor, beer. Duck leaves. Next day, Duck walks in. You got a grape? Bartender says, I'm getting sick of this. You know, if you come in here and ask me for a grape again, I'm going to pound a nail through your bill into the bar. Duck leaves. Next day, Duck comes in. Got a hammer? No. Got a grape? That's how I roll. My kids will be so happy with me.